you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Welcome to The Long Shot. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good day, good noon, good dawn, good dusk, good night, good post-meridian, good ante-meridian, good desk. Welcome, welcome. I am one of the hosts of The Long Shot. My name is Sean Conroy. Also with me today, as ever, the other host of The Long Shot, Amber Kenny, is here.
Hello, long time no talk.
Yeah, that's right. It's been several weeks. It's been longer than usual. So we obviously have a lot to catch up on. Did anything happen during those weeks?
Yeah.
Because I got nothing. Oh, okay. Good.
No, you had international travel, right?
We'll see. We'll get to that.
Oh, no. Twist.
Yeah, no, I did. I went to, well, I guess we just start with checking in, right? Like,
Yeah,
let's
I think
get
that's
into
great.
it.
Yeah.
So I'll go first. Usually we go to you first, but I'll go first this
I
time
love
because I am the reason we could not see each other last week because I had to go out of town, out of state, out of country for a wedding. I went to Belfast, Ireland
How cool.
for my cousin's wedding, and it was a crazy trip. Like, I wish I was in a position, both work-wise and financially, that I could go and spend a couple of weeks up there, which I know a lot of the people that went to the wedding were doing. But I literally left on Friday and came back on Monday from the wedding. Or left on Thursday, which was really Friday already by the time I left. Yeah, it's a whole around the world in 80 days thing where you cross the international date line several times.
Right.
And,
How long is the flight minus the time changes?
I'm not sure how time changes work, but I believe the flight was 10 minutes ultimately.
Okay, great. That's convenient. We should all go.
Yeah, it was not bad. No, I'm trying to think. So on the way there, I flew to Dallas and then from Dallas to Dublin. And that was, I think the Dallas to Dublin flight was about 8.5 hours.
Okay.
On the way back, I flew from Dublin all the way straight to LAX, and that was like an 11.5 hour flight. So that was
well, and one direction always takes longer because you're going like with the wind and against the wind, and
right, unless the wind, because the wind changes.
Can change.
The wind,
yeah.
Also, the wind cries Mary, but that's a different. I love to paint with the colors of
sure.
the wind. Yeah.
Just around the river bend.
So I went there, and as you know, I have a long-standing, tremendous.
You love flying, and you love all of the intricacies and rules.
The TSA is just the biggest crock of shit ever, right? It's a scam. It is literally like. I don't like to sound like a conspiracy theorist because I think conspiracy theorists are crazy, but there is a conspiracy against us with the TSA and major corporations because they've sold them all this equipment. It does nothing. It is ineffective.
It's giving us all cancer.
Yeah. People bring guns on the plane all the time. And yet you have to take your shoes off, take your belt off, do that weird stance.
It's the sign of the Illuminati.
let the people behind, let the people behind the thing see your dick, whatever the whole thing is. And it really does drive me nuts. It's like I just get so irritated by it. So anyway, that was a great way to start the trip. Flew to Dallas. Flew from Dallas to Dublin. Got a text literally while I was at the airport. I got a text from another of my cousins who was like, "How are you getting?" And see, this is how I travel. This is how I roll. Is I was like, I'll get to Dublin and I'll figure out how to get to Belfast. It'll be fine, and it would be fine. I know it would be. It would just be exhausted, stumbling around. Look, because there's a bus. There's a bus that goes directly from.
And you might not find the cheapest.
Right. So my cousin was like, "How are you getting there? We're driving. Do you want to drive with us?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." So I ended up getting to Dublin and waiting for them for a little while they were coming from DC, and anyway, so we drove up to Belfast, and they had a whole plan of like they wanted to go. So it was her and her boyfriend, and they wanted to go to a hedge maze first of
Oh,
all. Yeah.
okay.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah. You know, your typical hedge
I'm
maze.
familiar.
Yeah. And then they wanted to go to Winterfell. So I don't know if you know that Game of Thrones was filmed almost entirely in Northern Ireland. So a
Mm.
lot of the locations are up there. And I think, you know, if you think about it, Game of Thrones was like a 10-year ordeal. So it really was a huge part of the economy of Northern Ireland for a decade, which led to some other stuff that I'll get into later. So anyway, we were going to go to the hedge
Oh my
maze.
gosh.
Then we were going to go to Winterfell. So we got to the hedge maze. Problem with a hedge maze is when you go into a hedge maze, you are in a maze, so you can't just like go through and get out and go keep going. You know?
So you were like, people are like, TikTok, we got to make it to the next thing.
Yeah,
And you're
yeah.
like, oh, dead end.
Right. On purpose. Like I was like, let's go this way, guys, knowing that we would come to a. But anyway, we wandered around this hedge maze, which was great, and then
Did you
it's
have to
funny.
like pay? Like, was there like admission, or was it just like a hedge maze on the side of the road?
It was that's so funny. Like, hey, let's just put it over here. This is a good place for a hedge maze, right here by the side of the road. It's a beautiful road here. There's a little hairpin turn where you go into the hedge maze. So no, it's called the Peace Maze,
Mm.
and it was created in honor of, I don't remember what they call them. Did they call them the Clinton Accords? Whatever it was, where Clinton was very involved, and Senator George Mitchell from Maine was very involved in putting to bed the Troubles, which was the Northern Ireland problems between the Catholics and the Protestants that started in the 1600s, but really erupted in the late 1960s and lasted through the late 1990s. So when they signed these peace accords in the late 1990s, that's when they put this hedge maze in as like a peace maze.
That's interesting, like peace symbol, because it's like
very confusing, and you can't find your way out.
Right. Yeah, and it's like get lost. Like it's a interesting. Like, what is the symbology here?
Seamus, I don't think we thought this one through. There's people getting off on the side of the road, and they're more confused than they were when they started. So anyway, it was just. But what was funny was there was a coffee truck right by where you go into the. So it's like a big. I think it's like a camping area or something. There's a castle there, and there's a lake, and there's boats you can rent, and all this kind of stuff.
I know that I have the point of view of an American, and we have no old culture, but that sounds like you were describing a mini golf course. Like, there's a
castle, there's a lake, there's a clown's mouth, there's a windmill, there's a snapping alligator, so watch out for that. So anyway, we this coffee truck, this is not even going to be any good anymore. But like, I feel like when you go to a country like that, everybody speaks English, but they speak it with an accent. And so the guy in the coffee truck, I came up to get a coffee because I was exhausted by then. I'd been traveling for like over 10 minutes, and I just wanted a coffee. And he's like, okay, what can I get for you, sir? And then he got into an argument with somebody who was like outside the truck to his left or whatever, like while he's servicing me. So he was like, I'm trying to I'm faster now. And the other guy's like, let me tell you something. I'm going to come on, so you won't meet with us, you know, like, and it was terrifying. Like I was legitimately scared.
Was this before or after you went through the maze? That you had
this was before we went through the maze.
Wow.
So and like, yeah, I just was like, what are they gonna start shooting at each other? What's going on? And it could have I'll give you a little Johnny Brooks, give you my shillelagh, you know. But anyway, it was very scary. But so we made it up to Belfast. We got to the hotel, and it was a weirdly Belfast was muggy. Like that's the best I can describe it. It wasn't raining. Like, you always hear about how it rains all the time in Ireland. It was just very muggy. And I went into my room and I was like, okay, this is my thing. Because I have lived on the road for years and years is
road dog over
you
here.
get to the hotel room, you crank up the AC and you take a 45-minute nap in the cool. And I go to turn up the AC and I can't find it. I'm like, there's no, and the window is a safety window that only opens from here to here. You see how far my hand moved there? It opens from here. This is closed. This is wide open. So I'm like, okay, something weird is going on. So can't take a nap. It's too hot and muggy. Eventually I go out, I meet, they're like, meet us at this bar for traditional Irish music the first night. By the way, I should say Belfast was great, but it also felt very much like a tourist town. Like it was just about tourism. Like I'll get to it, but like we went on the Titanic tour and another tour, and but also yes, also yeah, the tour was not easy because you had to wear all sorts of whatever. But there was also pedal pubs going around everywhere. Like every 5 minutes, you'd see another like bachelorette party. Right yeah.
Have you ever done that?
No. Have you?
Yeah, me neither. No, it doesn't sound that fun to me.
I mean, no, it doesn't. And it was funny too because
if it's muggy out.
You're right. At one point, I went and I was like, I can't believe how many of these fucking things there are. It was like being in Memphis, Like here comes another pedal pub. Well, I just feel like Memphis is like a big party town at this point. Okay. It's like where everybody goes for it's where I'm going for my bachelorette party. And we don't have to get into it. But at one point I was like, I want to take a picture of this pedal pub. I'm going to wait till it gets close. And it comes up to the light right across the street from me. And I like very surreptitiously tried to like film it as it was getting ready to go by. And this sounds like I'm saying like, oh, they saw me. They didn't see me. But as soon as they got to the light, literally this bachelorette party, there was a guy who was like running the pedal pub, started playing Single Ladies, and they all lost their fucking minds. Well, like it was like,
unfortunately, that's the law.
It was it was like watching a shitty romantic comedy, Like it was such a stereotypical cliche, whatever. But
sometimes things are a cliche for a reason.
Yeah, that's true.
They're fun.
It was just too, like I was like, somebody is playing a prank on me right now or something. Like they can't be. But we go to this bar where they're playing traditional Irish music, and literally I walk into the bar, I see a couple of my cousins, a couple of other people. I meet one guy who his name was Peter, but he was like, "You're not going to remember my name is Peter," and I was like, "Probably I will, maybe, I don't know."
That's not that tough.
Yeah, and he was like, "So just think of me as Pedro," and I was like, "Okay."
I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't either. It was very odd.
Was there a lot of Peters or something, and he was trying to stand out?
He was the only one I met.
It worked though, because now you're talking about it.
Well, the next day he was like he was chasing me down.
One of those like get people to remember you. Folks.
He was chasing me down on the street, and he was like Sean, and I was like Pedro. Like I did remember. I think I would have remembered Peter, but Pedro I was never going to forget. I'm still talking about it. I have it in my journal. And anyway, so we're sitting there listening to traditional Irish music. I'm exhausted. I can barely move. The band on stage is like, anyway, that's the Black Velvet Band. Now let's play another great tune. And they're like, bye, bye, Miss American Pie. You drove my Chevy to the left. And I was like, I got to go to bed. Like, I can't stay for this. It was just so funny because it was like, what is happening right now? Yeah. Like, I'm at a college mixer and it's time to go home is that song, And instead it's like, we'd like to do another tradition that people seem to love, and it's about the day that Buddy Holly died.
Not a lot of people know that's what the song's about.
Right,
Fun fact.
Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost represents Crosby, Stills, and Nash. I don't know if you know that. This great Irishman. Um, but anyway, so then the next day we went on the Titanic tour.
Interesting. Wait, what do you
Well,
tour of what?
the Titanic, or I'm not sure. No. So here's so the Titanic was built in the Belfast shipyards.
Oh,
Belfast for hundreds of years, and I guess I kind of knew this in the back of my mind, but I hadn't thought about it. For hundreds of years, Belfast was a shipbuilding town. That's what they did there, was they built ships. That's what any shipbuilding town does, is people live there and they build ships. But that was the entire industry of the town, was shipbuilding. And so, it started off with wooden ships and, sailing ships and so forth. And then by the 1900s, they were building the biggest ships in history, including the Titanic, which launched from there.
Brag about, but
right. No, I mean that was the claim to fame of the Titanic, was that it was the biggest ship anybody had ever sailed the ocean blue with.
Right.
And that was why it was such a huge disaster, because there were so many people on board. But it was actually it was an interesting tour, because they just kind of walked you through the process of how these people went about building ships. And I don't mean to sound like, how when somebody goes to something and they're like, it changed my view of things, and I'm such a sensitive soul, and I get it now. I didn't get it before. Picasso was tortured, that kind of shit. But I really was struck by these people who just were like, we want to build ships out of steel and we want them to sail the ocean. Let's figure out how to do that. There was no computers. There was no blueprint. Right. There was no.
They couldn't do 3D modeling.
Right. They just had to sit down in a giant room with pieces of chalk and draw a thing on the floor that they thought would work as this giant ship. And eventually they had to build it and see what would happen. Unfortunately, what happened was it sank. But up until then, they really thought they were doing great.
Yeah.
So it was fascinating. And everything was by hand. That was the thing I was taking away from it, was like, there was no assembly line. There was no robots. There was no machines. And of course we know that, but like, I never think about that. And so they had film, not actual footage, but like they had made, how you make you have actor. Anyway,
they recreate. Like
yes. Of guys working on the ship. And literally what they would do to attach two plates of steel to each other, was, okay, we got a bunch of rivets. We got to heat the rivets until they're white hot. And then we got to hammer them into these little holes. So there's two guys on one side and one guy on the other side. And the guy on the other side just puts the end of his hammer into the hole so that they have something on the other side to hammer against. And then the two guys are hitting their hammers against it as fast as they can without hitting each other. And it's like this tiny little space that they're confined in as they're putting these gigantic machines that they're putting together. And I don't know. I'm assuming that some of those guys had like one giant forearm and one regular size, but they had to get them done before the rivets turned red hot instead of white hot, because then they were not as pliable as they had been. And they would just throw them. Like a guy would be up on a ladder and somebody would be like, whoop, and just throw white hot pieces of steel up to the guys up top. That's so I'm crazy. Sure there were all kinds of accidents all the time and, deaths. So the whole thing was really interesting. And then at one point on the tour, you see the actual spot where the Titanic was launched from. Like the way the museum is built is there's a big plate glass window that opens out onto the dry dock, which is where they rolled it out. They finished assembling it and rolled it into the water from, which, again, I don't think about these things, but they finished it in the dry dock, rolled it in the water, and then it was still another 2 years that it was being outfitted with stuff before it ever
Yeah,
got
that's
to
crazy.
sail anywhere. And that was another thing they did in this town. And I know I'm like getting way too excited about something that people would be like, who gives a shit? But like the Titanic had to be outfitted with dining rooms and chairs and tables. And so that was a whole other cottage industry that built up in Belfast of like,
Right.
we're not going to ship those things in from somewhere else. We're going to set up factories here that are going to build all the things that go on the ships we're building. So, and then at the end of the whole tour, two things. One is you walk into this one room and there's a glass floor in the room, which again scared the shit out of me because I'm sure it's fine until that one person steps on it and it goes bloop, and I'm a large guy. But you look down at the wreck of the Titanic on the bottom of the ocean below you, and you see the little, however they first filmed it, like it's like actual footage of the Titanic on the bottom of the ocean. So it feels like you're watching them discover the wreck of the Titanic. So that was cool. And then, of course, the very last thing they had at the end of the entire tour of the Titanic.
Celine Dion CDs?
Close. I mean, they definitely had those, but that was not the big selling point. Imagine what
it was a photo op so that you could
Yes. It was the prow of the ship so that you could stand there and go, I mean, what do they say?
I'm the king of the world.
King of the world. I was about to say top of the world, which is like a Jimmy Cagney movie, but yes, I'm the king of the world. And it was so funny to me that there was a line of people waiting to have their picture taken. So I just took a picture of the people online. I was like, in line.
In line.
And over here we say in line. I don't know what's the matter with you. Oh, shut the fuck in, you're so So that was Saturday morning we did that. Then Saturday afternoon we went to high tea at the Merchant Hotel, which was a whole elaborate thing where you get like these incredible finger sandwiches and 3 layers of pastries that are served to each person. And everybody
each
gets
person.
Yeah. Or I don't remember. There wasn't one for everybody. There's one for every 2 people. And that was great. I got to sit right next to my cousin who was getting married, so I got to catch up with her, and it was this gigantic, great room with like a domed ceiling and a chandelier, and just very elegant and beautiful, and filled with all the people that were going to the wedding.
That's
and
cool. Was the tour the whole wedding too? The Titanic?
Well, a bunch of us met up there and did like a 25-person tour. It was,
wow.
I was very clever because the tour guide said, I guess because, like I said, it's a tourist town. There's always like groups of 25 people checking in right in front of you at the hotel or whatever.
Interesting.
They're always like, "Is this where we check into the hotel?" Like the Germans love to be on tour. But as you can imagine, when a German tour group is coming through the Titanic Museum, they have like 20 minutes to be at the Titanic Museum. Then they have to be at the Game of Thrones thing. Then they have to be at the whatever. So this tour guide, who was our tour guide, all my family and their friends, whoever was there, and the tour guide was like, "Now, how long do you guys? What time do you have to be somewhere else?"
Right.
And I was very clever. I said 2:30 tomorrow afternoon. So that was just a hilarious movie. We all had a good chuckle about that because that was when the wedding was. We had to be there for that.
The wedding was the day after high tea.
Day after, yeah.
Got it.
So we went to high tea, and here's a little smidgen of trivia for ardent long shot listeners, is that at the high tea, I finally, for the first time ever, got to wear my white linen pants. I don't know if people remember the pants saga, but I finally, and it was well worth it. And it was funny because I was like, I feel like this is like a cool, like I like these pants. I want to, like we live in the social media age, and it's like I want to have a picture of this because we're in this incredible space.
Mm-hmm.
and I have these white linen pants
Did you have to
on.
wear your nude panties though?
No, I
Wasn't that
actually,
the problem at one
yeah,
point?
that was, and I did not in time. I ordered several pairs of nude panties, but I didn't get them in time.
Mm.
So I found a pair here while I was here. I was like, and they were like gray, and you couldn't see them through the
Ah.
thing. And I was like, I'll bring these, and then I forgot them. So I got there, and I was like, oh boy.
And it was like, "Kiss me, I'm Irish." Like,
eat shit.
SpongeBob SquarePants.
But yeah, anyway, I found a pair that didn't, it was fine. But of course I was like, oh, I want to get a picture of this, but I can't, I'm not, there are people who are like, hey, can you take a picture of us? And I just can't do that. I'm not capable of, at one point I asked my cousin and her fiance, is it okay if I get a picture with you guys? And we all took a picture together, but it was just a weird realization that like the world we live in is one where you're allowed to just go up to people and say, hey, do you mind taking my phone and taking a picture of me? And I I can't do it.
You haven't caught up.
No. So then Sunday morning, we went on another tour, a Troubles
tour.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
We all got in like black cabs and drove up to Shankill Road, which was where the dividing line between the Catholic neighborhood and the Protestant neighborhood was. And that was interesting because we heard all about the troubles in the IRA and people bombing each other and throwing bombs. And several of the guys in the course of their presentations kept saying things like, there's two things you can try to do when you throw something. You can throw high or you can throw far. So when they put the fence up high, people could throw it over the fence, but it wouldn't go in too far. So they had to raise the fence because when the fence was too low, you could throw it far, and that would cause it to damage people. They're talking about like Molotov cocktails and things that people would throw over the walls. It's like a weird thing where you know about these things, but you don't really know about these things. Like there's still a curfew where the gates between those two parts of town close.
No way.
At like 6 o'clock every night. Yeah. And there's like 6 gates, I think, in the fence that surrounds the Catholic area of Belfast. And they keep them open every day now, except one of them had never been opened until like 4 weeks ago or something.
What? That's crazy.
I know. And it was funny too, because the guys who were doing the tour, who were the cab drivers, they were kind of saying, well, there's all these politicians who think it's to their benefit to keep people divided and keep them, so it's never going to go away.
And you're like, I know nothing about that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But they were kind of saying like, it's all these old politicians who think it's important to sustain the old hatreds and it works for them politically and it's their political benefit and it's never going to change. And then part of me in my head was thinking like, feel like it's partially to your benefit too, because you guys are the ones giving tours about this stuff. And it's way more interesting if there's stuff going on, whatever, which felt like a very cynical way to think about it. But then after the wedding, a couple of like one of my cousins and another of their roommates and I got in a cab back to the hotel, and the cab driver was a younger guy and he was like, oh yeah, nobody cares about it anymore. People my age don't give a shit. I'm married to a Protestant woman. I'm a Catholic. Her husband or her brother's married to a Catholic woman. And we're all fine about it. Nobody even thinks about it anymore under a certain age, you know? So it was just interesting to get a couple different perspectives.
Yeah.
And like you said, it did make me think about how it is to certain people's benefits to keep people stirred up and hating each other, you know? And then, you know, we had the wedding, which was beautiful in a castle in Belfast.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was really nice. They had a nice ceremony. They had a nice reception. We had a nice, a dinner, and then and I got to talk to some people I didn't know, which is not my favorite nor my forte, but it was fine. I talked to 2 women who were in my cousin's book group. That's how they knew her, was through their book group. So we talked a lot about what they read and, stuff. And I plugged my favorite novel. They were from Minnesota. So the novel I love, Staggerford, is a novel that takes place in Minnesota. It was written by a guy from Minnesota. So one of them was very familiar with it. And she was like, I can't believe that's your favorite book. And I was like, yes, it is.
Were
so
most
nice.
people from the US?
Yes. Yeah. There were not, I don't even know if there were any Irish people.
So it was fully a destination wedding. It wasn't like.
Right. His grandmother, I think, had lived in Belfast or something like that. But it was also, this was hilarious, was at one point somebody was like, yeah, they just were here traveling last summer and they found out how cheap it was to rent the castle. So they decided to do it there. And I was like, yeah, cheap for them to rent the castle. What about the rest of us coming over there? And then, I got back to the hotel and it was time to head back to the next day. It was time to head back to Dublin. I got on the bus to go. This time I did take the bus.
How far away is Dublin from Belfast?
It was like 2 hours by bus.
Okay.
So not terrible.
Yeah.
Except that there was a kid sitting across the aisle from me who was singing tunelessly in Arabic and clapping the entire time. I don't know what was going on with him. He's about 16 or 17. And he was like, so he's across the aisle, but on the bus, that means you're right next to the person.
Right.
And he was just like out of rhythm and tunelessly singing and clapping the entire time.
Interesting.
So I was kind of losing my mind.
Yeah.
And then went through security, flew to Heathrow, went through security again, went through security again. The third time I was like, they were like, can we see your boarding pass? We need to check it for security. And I was like, of course, at this point I was kind
livid.
Of
yeah.
These people. And I was like, oh, you mean like they checked it right back there? And the guy was like, well, those people are checking it for this reason, and we're checking it for this reason. And I was like, okay, whatever you say. And then I got on the flight from Heathrow to LA, and unfortunately,
you have to go to customs, which is a nightmare.
Well, yeah, but even before that, no. So this is an 11-hour flight, and next to me on the flight, I have an aisle seat, but it's in the middle. In other words, there's
like a
window. It's like 4 across, and I'm on the end. And in the 3 other seats are a family of 4. So I'm in a seat.
The math doesn't add up.
People, and there's 5 of us, and it's this little Scottish family with a daughter who's about 7 and a child. I don't know if it was a boy or a girl who was like 2 maybe. And for about 3 hours, the 2-year-old was not having fun. And so the 2-year-old was right next to me and was just screaming the entire time. And then it got to be later. And I can't sleep on planes, but I'm the exception, not the rule. So these guys decided they were going to go to sleep. So they moved all around and they put the 7-year-old next to me. And she felt like she should be able to sleep lengthwise on the seat. So for the next 4 hours, she was just kicking me the entire time. Like literally was right next to me, just kicking and kicking and kicking and kicking and I think she was trying to move me out of the way, which is like the unstoppable force meets the immovable object.
Right.
So I just kind of like pretended it wasn't happening. And then at a certain point, her solution was that she lifted her legs and she basically like hooked her legs over my legs so that she could stretch out straight. And I was like, that's fine because it's me. But what if it was like some weird person? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So I let her stay there and she slept for another like 45 minutes or whatever. And then her mother woke up and was like, get over here. Like, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. And I was like, it's fine. Who cares? But it was tough, it was tough.
Yeah.
And then it keeps going. I get back to LAX.
Wait,
go ahead.
Really quick. What do you do while you're on a flight? Are you reading? Are you listening to music?
So ordinarily I would read because that is for two reasons, and we talked about this with the reading club at the wedding.
Hmm.
I love being on a plane because it sort of forces me to just focus on reading, which I used to do all the time, but which I am not good at anymore because of the fucking crazy social media world we live in, where I'm like, I could either read a chapter of a book or I could read 9,000 tweets about everything going on in the world right
and
now.
Feel really bad.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, that is the thing that I gravitate towards. But on these flights, it's hard because in order to read, you have to turn on your own light. And I feel like it shines on other people's seats. And I'm like, I don't like, I'm a selfish person, but I also don't want to like be the guy who gets into a confrontation with somebody.
Like as a little girl is kicking you, you're like, I don't want to put anyone out.
Right. But so I did on both flights, on the flight there and the flight back, I ended up watching a couple movies. I watched The Fabelmans. I don't know if you've seen The Fabelmans.
I haven't seen it. Was it good?
I liked it. There was things I didn't like about it.
No, that is a no.
Well, Spielberg is great, you know.
He's a talented guy.
But it's interesting. I felt like, I mean, I guess I'm probably not supposed to say stuff like this, but a lot of the theme of the movie, you know, the movie is about
movies,
being an artist, but like being an artist versus relationships and family and stuff. Like, you know, there's a great, you know, Judd Hirsch is in it very briefly, and he has a great scene where he just talks about how, you know, art. He's like, art and family, it'll tear you apart, you know. And he's kind of saying to little Fabelman, who is little Spielberg, saying, you got to do this. You got to do your art, you know, because he was an artist. He was like, yes, I left to go be a clown. And then I became the lion tamer in the circus. And, you know, but there's also a big part of it towards the end because, you know, they were Jewish and they moved to Arizona and then to California. And so you had to deal with a lot of anti-Semitism. And there's a part of it that's very much about that, about the way he dealt with anti-Semitism and stuff, which is great. But I feel like some of the actors in the movie were almost doing like what I was just doing, like a sketch Jewish accent, you know, of like, well, we're trying to live here in Arizona, and that, you know, and it's like, that's great when you're doing stand-up, but when you're doing like a serious movie that's about serious themes, it kind of took me out of the movie. That's all I'm saying, you know, of like Michelle Williams being this brassy Jewish broad. And it's like, okay, you know?
Yeah.
So I watched that, and then I watched a movie that I was like, I'd heard of a million times and I've never seen it. And it was astonishing to me, this movie, which was a movie called My Best Friend's Wedding. Are you familiar with that movie at all?
I am very familiar.
Tell me what you're familiar with.
I mean, it was, what year did it come out? Like,
it had to be the early 90s or maybe like, late 90s. Yeah.
So I just feel like it was a big deal. I might have been in like high school and it was a big deal. Like everyone, but it's a classic Julia Roberts joint about, I think it's also hilarious now in hindsight because I think the pact they made is if they're not married by the age of 28.
28, yeah.
Which is like,
like if we're like, old maids at the age of 28, we're just going to get married, yeah.
That like they would get married, the two best friends, the male and female best friends, and they're about to turn 28 and she's like, oh, I'm gonna have to tell him that I'm not ready to get married or something. Like she was freaking out about it, but he calls to say that he is in fact getting married to Cameron Diaz, who's like the young and so she realizes that she's in love with him and spends the entire movie trying to break these two up through like manipulative.
She's a fucking terrible person.
I know, she's a terrible person.
Throughout the movie, she's awful. She's like sending fake emails and scheming and like making him think things that aren't true.
And making her like sing publicly when she doesn't like singing publicly. But then she was so charming with that.
It backfires completely. But that's another thing with that movie where it was like, you know, it was all these moments that didn't really connect. Like it wasn't like, oh, she's actually very charming. Here's what's going to lead. That would. It was like, we're going to get married. I'm going to show how shitty she is at karaoke. She's kind of bad, but it's fun that she's like this. I'm still going to marry her. Like there was no, it never had any effect on the story, you know?
But she ultimately doesn't get with him, which felt
Julia
like
Roberts.
Yes, it felt like a victory because a movie like that could have easily spent the whole time watching her scheme to get the guy, and then she gets the guy.
Yeah.
But then Rupert Everett is her
the gay best friend.
Is her gay best friend, and he comes in and he's just kind of like,
it was so bizarre. It was very bizarre. So yes, you're exactly right. So Dermot Mulroney, I mean, that's what's so funny about it to me too, is like it's Julia Roberts and Cameron Diaz and Dermot Mulroney, like one of
he was gonna be like the big star at the time, though.
Totally forgettable, you know, like good actor and good for him, handsome guy.
Sorry, but, Dermot. If
yeah. But like so completely milquetoast, you know. And meanwhile, yes, Julia Roberts is a terrible person, but like there's a few moments where it's just a shot of her face, and it's like she's breathtakingly beautiful, you know.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, I know why she's like. This is not a part she should have been playing because it's awful, but like I get why she's
a movie star. Yeah, you know? She is well, and I feel
she's so young too. Like she just has that young, like she just looks. She's incredible, you know, like she's a different species.
And I feel like Cameron Diaz is like, that is a great role for her. I don't know if she's always the strongest actor. Right. Man, we're really meowing, like going after people. But
she's not the strongest actor, but she's no Dermot Mulroney. Don't get me wrong.
But I think she is just like, I think because she gets to sort of play Cameron Diaz in that role, like she's just.
Well, she's like a sophomore in college in that movie.
No, I was like, why are they getting married? She's 19 years old. Like, what are we doing?
And she's the daughter of a rich guy, so she's like this rich girl who gets whatever she wants. And like, here's the thing.
But like, I guess in other hands, that role could have been like the most unlikable person ever. Cameron Diaz makes it a likable, charming character.
Well, who would have played it 20 years later? Malin Ackerman.
Right.
And she and you would have been like, oh, I hope he doesn't end up with her, you know. Right. And no shade on Malin, she's great, but like that was what she played in all those movies.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. The hot chick,
the shitty one that we didn't want to end up with. Yeah. It was just crazy to me because I had just heard about it so many times, and then I watched it and I was like, ugh, this is awful. But also at the very beginning, like the first time, two more things, then but
is that "Say a Little Prayer for You"? Is that how it starts?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The opening credits are like a girl group singing "Say a Little Prayer," and then they end up singing that, I think, in the diner later on or something, and like Emmett Walsh is there, like one of the all-time great character actors from like Blood Simple and stuff, and he's just a dude who's like, say a little prayer for me. Like, and you never know really who he is or what he's doing there. It was
just have to have fun.
Yeah, and the other thing is there's like 4 different moments like that in the movie where they sing, because there's the karaoke thing. There's one where Julia Roberts and him are doing something together. And then there's a group of dudes at the end who are all sucking up helium and start singing together in a falsetto harmony. But at the very beginning, when Julia Roberts gets off the plane to come and see him, and I'll go back to before that in a second, but she gets off the plane and Cameron Diaz, like she sees him and it's like, oh, Sparks, we're together, blah, blah, blah. And then Cameron Diaz is like, oh my God, you're his friend. And she goes, we're going to be best friends. And at that moment I was like, oh, he's going to end up marrying Cameron Diaz, because my best friend's wedding, it's her who's the best friend. You know.
Yeah.
And so the whole movie I was like, okay, when are they going to end up having to marry Cameron Diaz? But the other funny thing about it was like nothing happened to make her fall in love with him. It was
just the fact that she couldn't have him.
Yeah, it was so weird. It was like I got to call and tell him I'm not in love with him. Hey, I'm getting married. Oh my God, I have to be with this guy forever. Anyway, so I
That's how
watched that.
that's how women operate. You know
Oh,
us.
totally, totally. Oh, I know
I'm
you.
sure it was I'm sure it was written and directed by women.
hmm There was a lot of women in it, that's for sure. Um, and I started to watch that 65 or whatever that movie is, 65 or 65 million or 65 billion with Adam Driver, where it's like he's an alien who ends up
Oh,
on Earth
oh,
while the
oh.
dinosaurs are there
Like
or
the
whatever.
year 66.
It's like
Sort
another attempt at like a mashup of sci-fi and
Uh-huh.
Jurassic Park or whatever. But I couldn't keep going with that. I was like, I did like 20 minutes. I was like, I'm out.
I can't stomach it.
TKO. Yeah. I did. Oh, that's what I did. I watched a lot of boxing. There was a Showtime series about what was it called? The Kings, and it was about Marvelous Marvin Hagler and Tommy the Hitman Hearns and Roberto Duran and Sugar Ray Leonard, and all four of them were middleweights fighting at the same time in the mid to late 80s, and they were all amazing fighters, and it kind of was like about their trade-offs and who was better than who, and who trained harder, and it actually was really interesting because they were all kind of fucked up in their own way.
Sure.
And that was a fun series, so I watched that while I was being brutally kicked to death. And then I got back to the airport, and I had to get from the airport to my car, which was at a garage somewhere. And the thing, whatever. First of all, LAX used to have a public parking lot, Lot C, that had thousands and thousands of parking spaces, and you could park there, and then there was a bus that would take you. It was great. It was like way cheaper than anything else. Closed during the pandemic, not there anymore. So thousands of spaces gone, which means any place you try to park is completely packed and sold out. But also they can pick and choose when they want to send shuttles and whatever. So I'm like stumbling through the airport. I've been on the road for 22 hours at this point from the time I left my hotel. And I have to get from where I am to departures in the Delta terminal. That's all I have to do. So I go from the Tom Bradley terminal over to the other terminal where the Delta is, and I'm going to go up to the thing, and this door opens, and I see that it leads into the terminal, and I go into where the door is, and it turns out I am in the Delta Lounge. I'm in the Delta Admirals Club. All I have to do is walk through the door right in front of me, and I'll be where I need to be. But I am not allowed in the Delta Lounge, as is told to me by like 11 people who pop out of various. It was like laughing, like they all popped out of like a garbage pail and a closet and a whatever, and they're all furious at me for being, because immediately they go, "Are you a member, sir?" And I'm like, "I don't know a member of what? Like, I'm not a member."
You should have just been like,
Yeah. And they were like, no, you can't be in here. You have to go back out and go around and find your way and whatever. And I knew it meant like another, literally like 4 minutes of walking, which seems like nothing. But after 22 hours, all I have to do is get through that door right there and I can go upstairs. No, sir, you have to go back around and whatever. And like, I know I was well aware of what an asshole I was being. And I just said, hold on, everybody, hold on. I just want to get the fuck home. So fuck all of you.
Oh, no. Did you make it into anyone's TikToks of like guys going crazy at the airport?
It would have been a perfect one. It would have been perfect. So then I just turned around and walked out. So they won, but I was like, I can't. Well,
you're not like trying to like get.
I'm not trying to take snacks or take drinks. I just want to get out that way instead of that way, which takes me backwards instead of forwards. But no. Sorry, sir, not allowed. So anyway, I got back and I came home, and that was the end of my trip. But it was great. I really had a good time.
I'm glad you went.
seeing everybody. I loved meeting some of my cousin's friends. And some of the people that were there who, this is where it gets into a weird area, but like, for example, one cousin of mine who isn't exactly a cousin, she's just somebody that we all grew up together and we call each
Yeah.
other. And it's always like trying to explain that to people gets really, people are like, what are you talking about? You keep saying it's my cousin, but you're not related.
Well, it's like you have aunts.
Yeah.
I feel like that happens more than with cousins, where you're like, oh, that's Aunt Sheila. She's not actually related to me. She's just like my mom's friend.
Right. And it's, for me, it's like there's actually ants that live in my kitchen, and I'm like, these are not related to me, but they are my aunts. Anyway, it was a fun trip, and I was really glad I went. And I think to a certain extent, for whatever it's worth, I think he was glad that I was there too. Because there was a lot of people. They said at one point during the wedding, when they decided to have the wedding at Belfast Castle, one of them said to the other one, like, no one's going to come. Why would anybody come all the way here? And the other one said, I bet we get 50 to 60 people to come. And they got, I think, 56 or something like that.
Oh, perfect. So they were right.
Yeah, but it was like nobody else from my family was there, and the families are all very close. So anyway, I enjoyed it, and I got to meet some nice people, and it was fun. And I highly recommend staying off the Titanic the next time they launch it. So that was my checking in.
That's great. You killed it.
Yeah. Amber, checking in.
Yeah.
Beat that.
I don't think that I can. This past week, the summer intern started. Currently I'm managing 2 of them. They are freaking adorable. No, they're so cute, because I've managed interns a lot.
Hey, it's Jeff.
He just got a haircut. I haven't even really seen it. But it's been virtual for the past 3 years. Mm-hmm. So these are the first interns that we've had in a very long time that are in person. And so it's like new to them, new to us, but they're so eager. They're so cute.
Are they college kids?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And one of them was like, hey, Amber, can I ask you a question? And I was like, sure, man, what's up? He's like, can I?
I love how you hesitantly said, man, like you're trying to use the lingo. Sure, man, what's up? My bro, what's going on, my bro?
And he was like, can I take breaks and like go outside? And I'm like, yeah, go. Like, I don't. It's very
There's
cute.
ducks. There's ducks down by the pond.
You don't have to just go outside when I say you could go outside. Like you could, but there was like an all-day intern immersion day with DreamWorks interns and then some NBC Universal interns on our DreamWorks campus. So they spent the whole day doing different like seminars and God knows what. But as a part of it, there was going to be a panel on marketing. And they asked my boss to speak and he couldn't. So he volunteered me. And so
he just pointed at you because he couldn't speak.
So I spoke as the representative of DreamWorks marketing executives.
Shit, yeah.
and so I got really
The Godfather theme is just playing in the background.
Right. Well, there were people from Focus Features, there were people from International, and then there was like me, and I was like, what am I doing here? It was really funny because the like imposter syndrome was through the roof, like off the charts. Especially because like the first questions were like, so like, what's your educational background and how did you get into this position? And I was like, I'm going to be honest. And I was like,
I do a podcast for the last 13 years.
I was a theater major and then I worked at a bank for a long time and hated it. And then I accidentally got here and
I have a friend who directed Squeesh.
Exactly. But I think it went well. But it was Oh, that was the other thing. So I was like, I at least have like stage presence. I've done it before. And the woman from Focus Features, she spoke first, and she was very like wacka wacka, like that is not a good impression of her, but that was her energy. Like she was just like, I got jokes and I got things to say. And so I was like, well, I'm not gonna try to compete. So I was just like, you win. Like you can be the wacky one.
Right.
But yeah. And
do you feel like that was authentic, or do you feel like she did like a Toastmasters class that was like, use humor to your advantage?
I don't know.
Hey, look at this guy sitting over here. What's his deal? Anyway, let me tell you about Focus Features.
I truly don't know, but I will say, like, she talked a lot, but both of the interns afterwards were like, so what does she do? I was like, that's not great. Like, you can talk a lot and not say much. And I feel like that's what she was doing. I was trying to have what I say be valuable. Who knows if it was or not. But yeah, it was really cute. The two boys, that's what I call them. They're grown men. The interns.
Isn't it wild how now you're like, because I do this all the time now. I'm like, I was talking to this girl and my friend will be like, she's 45. And I'm like, she's a girl. You know?
They got the crowd to cheer the loudest for me when I got on stage, which was really cute and sweet. But but speaking of like reading a book about like use humor to your advantage, one of our interns, I think, has read a bunch of those books. Because on the first day, my boss was like, let's talk about dress code. And I was like, what? You've been on campus. It's very, very relaxed, very casual.
I have photos of us that we could pass for like unhoused people, you know?
But he was like, there is no dress code. I was like, what a strange way to present that. But okay. He's like, just don't wear shorts, but it's very relaxed. It's very casual. People wear hoodies and jeans. This kid, he comes every day wearing dress shoes, slacks, and a button-up shirt. Because I think he read in a book, like, dress for the job that you want.
Yeah.
And
he wants to be a shirt model.
Yes. And the other thing is, there's times that it's like they're hourly. And I'm like, it's 6 o'clock. Like, get out of here. And he's like, not till the boss leaves. And I'm like, ugh, like, please go. So, like, he has these rules. Like, he won't leave the office if I'm still there or my boss is still there, and he dresses really nice. And guess what? He's probably going to be my boss in like 5 years.
Well, so what's funny though also is that you're going to explode at him at some point. You're going to be like, hey, it's 6 o'clock. You can take off. And he's going to be like, not till the boss leaves. And you're going to be like, Gary, get out. Enough.
I can't pay you overtime and I need to finish this. Like, please leave.
Cut to him just lying in bed with the covers around his face, just shaking. Yeah.
But yeah, because I've told you, I can't remember if I've talked about this on the podcast or not, but I left the social team and I'm on the brand team, but the head of the social team, who was my former boss 3 months ago, just had a baby. So he's on paternity leave. So now I am running the brand team and the social team.
Holy shit.
It's a lot.
I can imagine. A lot. There's a reason they're two different teams.
Turns out those are full-time jobs, both of them.
This is like when I played for the Knicks and the Lakers.
Right. But I just finished week 4 of this, and I don't want to get cocky, but like it feels like, okay, like I've hit a little bit of a groove in it. Week 2 and 3, I feel like this is unsustainable. I feel like fully.
Well, they're gonna come to you and they're gonna say, Amber, we've decided to make the teams a hybrid, and you're gonna be in charge because that's gonna give more value to our shareholders.
Sure. And we can't give you a raise, but wow, what an opportunity.
You're doing a great job.
Yeah. But
we will give you a plaque when you retire in 40 years.
Well, that's why
don't retire.
And on some level, like, it's great that we have interns now because there's more hands to do things, but you also have to show them how to do it.
Right.
And so just I can't even put into words how insanely busy, just like fire hose of work coming at me every direction. And I'm very aware of the people on the social team and making sure they don't feel like they're getting buried. So I'm like trying to protect them from feeling overwhelmed and making sure they're okay. And so it's been so intense. And then so when one of the interns comes up and is like, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" I'm like, I have to like stop everything, and I'm like, "Yeah, what do you want?" He's like, "Can I take a break outside?" I'm like, "Yeah, get out, like go. Please don't ask that question anymore."
Can I ask you a question? Would you kindly go fuck yourself right now? Like you turn into that kind of boss?
Or I'll give them a project truly like it's such an interesting it is interesting to be on the other side of it and being like, "Oh, I have more empathy for past managers," because you realize what you give the project you give that person, that's everything they're working on. That's their whole universe. So they're like, "I have this question about it, and I have this concern, and I want you to review this." And it's like, I gave you that because I'm doing 45 other things. Like, stay busy with it and don't ask me questions.
Yeah.
So yeah, I give them projects.
Still, management is a bunch of assholes. Let's be honest.
I don't know. I mean, I think there's good managers and bad managers.
Yeah.
So it's like this combo of giving them projects that will keep them busy, that will be helpful and add value, but also aren't urgent.
You're not going to come back to ask you stuff.
And don't have follow-up questions. And so
is it self-explanatory at a certain level?
It's
or simple.
But because of it, it makes me feel like I don't know. I've had multiple people within the marketing department and some of them completely out of character, people that are normally not known for being sweet, being like, "Hey, Amber, can I talk to you? You're doing a really good job. I'm really proud of you." I'm like, am I dying?
I don't think you're going to make it, but I appreciate you trying.
It's so cute that they keep giving.
Yeah.
Like they're just, I'm going to have every job at the same time. It's wild.
You are the head of brand and marketing and social, and we're going to make you the captain of the softball team and the cleaners. You're going to help the cleaners.
My boss told me I had to speak at that panel on like the day that was the most intense. And I was like, Of course I have to speak at a panel. Of course I do. Like, sure. Right.
Just losing your mind. Of course I have to be at a panel. Of course I do. Anyway, what were we talking about? Was it social or was it Brad? Someone remind me.
Well, and there's one new employee that's on the brand team. So I'm finally going to have an employee, which is great. But I can't even really train her because I was like, well, normally you would then send this to the social team. But that is me. So it's like this weird snake eating its tail.
Ouroboros.
Yes.
Ouroboros.
But that is my checking in. I'm doing okay. I've got one more month of this. Alex comes back basically August 1st, and it's going to be great. Oh, in this time, we've launched a movie. We've launched an international tour of Gabby's Dollhouse. We had a new person start and 2 new interns. Like it's just been crazy. It's been absolutely crazy. And it's my whole life. It's kind of embarrassing to be like, all I have to talk about is work, but that's all I have to talk about is work.
I get it. You're in the thick of it.
That is me.
All right. Well, it feels like this is a good place to start a segment on the show that we call Parting Shots. So let's start today. Let's switch it up and start with Amber.
Going back to recommending shows, I don't know if I've ever talked about this before.
This is our new thing. It's just our place that recommends, like, you guys should see this. My best friend's wedding is really weird. You should watch it. Dermot Mulroney's going to be a star.
We talked about things. We had
Titanic. You should see Titanic.
Too soon.
Too soon. It's only been 122 years or 100,
Um,
yeah. Anyway.
but Ocean Gate or whatever.
Oh, right. The mini sub. By
Mhm.
the way, that was a big part of that was not a big part of, but that was a big part of the Titanic exhibit was
Mhm.
all the stuff that you remember from the movie, like the side character stuff, which is
Mhm.
all true stuff, like
Mhm.
the couple who ends up going back to their bed and just drowning together, or the musicians who keep
The Musicians
playing.
is the one that sticks out the most to me.
And there's another one where this woman, maybe this is what the couple was based on, I can't remember, but there's like a passenger and he's going to stay on the ship and his wife gets in a boat and then she goes, no, I'm not leaving without him, I'm going back. So she goes back and she gives her maid her fur coat so her maid can get into the lifeboat where the first class passengers are getting, and so the maid lives. And that's the other thing about the Titanic people, is that all the people who survived lived for another 40, 50, 60 years, so they were able to keep telling
Yeah.
those stories. um anyway, sorry. So what else, what else should people watch besides the Titanic?
The Other Two. Is that a show that you've ever watched?
I've watched a
It's
lot
on
of
my
it, yeah.
I think it's done now.
It is.
And the third season I thought was great. It's now become like a comfort show. I feel like I'm going to start rewatching it.
Mm-hmm.
They made some real big swings with, I don't know, just like referencing movies and being more cinematic with their
The way they shot it.
choices.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's all really successful. And I thought that the last episode, without giving anything away, is like beautiful and poignant. And I want you to watch it and we can talk about it.
I like the other two. It's very well done. It's very funny. Some great comedic actors. I was very excited because I've been teaching the spec script writing class, and I was like, the other two is a great spec script
because there's like such strong characters,
and also it's not been on that long, and it's still going.
Mm-hmm.
So when it was canceled, I was like,
God damn it! Yeah,
such a bummer that they canceled it.
Well, I have been rewatching it, and there is an episode, I think it's season 2, where Brooke is asked to speak at a panel of like strong business women, and she spends the whole time being like imposter syndrome, and the whole first hour, every question she's asked, she's like, pass. And, but it just made me laugh because I was like, it's
me. Yeah. Well, there's people like Drew Tarver, who's great on the show.
So
who's an old improv student of mine. Ken Marino, I've done like.
Oh my
Ken
God,
and I played. I played Ken's twin in a. It was Burning Love, which was a parody of The Bachelor, and so we did a scene together one day where I was his twin brother.
Amazing.
And, he's just such a.
He's really so funny
and also just a nice guy.
So funny.
He was the Dermot Mulroney of the sitcom world in the 1990s. Like he was like Ken was, and he's great. Like that just shows you how fucked up Hollywood is. Is like everybody's like, oh, Ken's going to be the next big sitcom star, and he was great in everything he did, and it still was like, which doesn't mean he's not still doing amazing things. He is, but he never had that one sitcom that really worked out.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
He's very, very good at this. The guy who plays like Brooke's boyfriend, I think, is so funny and charming.
Yeah.
Anyway, check it out.
So see the other two. So here's my parting shot. And I had a couple of things I wanted to talk about, but I will just talk about this because this is really just me bragging ultimately.
Oh, good.
I'm going to couch it in a way that it actually has a point. First of all, I did shows the last 3 nights in a row.
Amazing. Oh, yeah.
First time I've done that. And so, I mean, that was my life for 30 years. And then all of a sudden it wasn't anymore. And now I'm starting to get back into it.
I just met with Liquid Feet yesterday, and I think it was Dave who was like, I keep seeing Sean around town. I'm like, yeah, he's performing a lot.
Well, but that's also, I told you that I ran into Dave on the street.
Right, like at the grocery store.
Yeah, no, I had this much food from a taco place. I was like eating my feelings. But anyway, So I did a show on Friday night. I did a show Saturday night. I did a show Sunday night. They were all really fun. The Friday night show, I did a character that I'm working on because I'm a character guy. The Saturday
Nice.
night show, I did my improv show at the Lyric Hyperion. And I have to say, I mean, I forget, you came to the first one, right?
I did. Yeah.
I feel like every show we've done there has been so fun and so well executed with such a great, and like, of course I would say that no matter what, but I really am honestly saying, having done this for so long, I would tell you if I thought the shows sucked. And I feel like they have been just so high quality, and we still have not figured out how to get an audience in there. So like Saturday night, there were 7 people in the audience, and it was a transcendent show. And afterwards I was like, I feel so good about this show, but it's so criminal that we have such a hard time getting an audience. And I know that's always the ultimate problem, but like, it's frustrating. And then last night I did Elefante, which is the successor to ASCAT, which has been an interesting journey. I do that show about once every 2 months. And this is the brag that I was talking about. I came out of that show last night and I walked across to where I had parked my car in the supermarket parking lot because I don't feel like parking far away up in the neighborhood. And as I was walking into the supermarket parking lot, a car full of people was coming in the other direction. And they stopped the car and they were like, "You're amazing. That was amazing. You're so funny. We love the show, but we especially, you are our favorite. We love you." Like on and on and on.
Like hanging out of like the sunroof.
To the point where I like wanted to take my phone out and film them so I could put it on my social media, you know. And then I went into the supermarket to buy, you know how you go to the supermarket to buy things. I went in to buy a thing, and these 2 guys were coming out, and they're like, "Hey, man, great show," which is fine. Then I'm standing at a case, you know, like a food case, looking at the stuff that's in there, and this little girl, and I say little girl because she was only like 50, walks up to me from the side. I can see her like hesitantly. No, she really was a little girl. I would say she was probably 22 or something. I can see her sort of hesitantly creeping up next to me, and she goes, "I am so sorry. This is really awkward, but I just wanted to tell you I loved your show. I thought you were so funny. I really enjoyed it. Whatever." And the reason
you gotta hand people flyers to your show,
right? I do other things, but I guess my point is not just that I'm incredible, which is true, but like it was not awkward at all. And it was so great to hear that from this little girl who like, because one of my fears when I go into these shows, and I'll just be straight up honest about it, and this kind of happened, I think, a little on Friday, is like, I am a gentleman of a certain distinguishment at this point. I've been doing this for a long time. And not even that, but like I walk on stage, I have a big gray beard, or people like, "Look at this fucking old man. Who's this guy?" You know, I still have cool sneakers, but like there's some miles on the tires, you know? And this was a child who was like, "You were amazing." And that meant so much to me because of my own insecurities, not just because it's nice to hear people say that they like what you did, you know?
Right.
So, point being, if you enjoy what somebody does, let them know, even if you think they might not want to hear it from you, you know? Because I think it's just nice to hear those things always. There's a reason people do stuff, and it's not so no one will see it and no one will hear it and no one will recognize it. So it was not awkward at all. Then while she was talking to me, I farted. So that was really awkward because all right. Well, that is the long shot. That is our show. Thank you guys so much for listening. And please like and subscribe, hit the bell, ring the button, push the thing, do all the things. And we will see you next time on The Long Shot. it's a podcast. It's not about basketball. It's a podcast.
Bye.
Oh, I got to turn it on. I'm always waiting for it. Always waiting. Ah, shit. Where's the thing?
At things from a certain perspective. It's parent approved and it's animal tested. And I didn't know, oh, but I could have guessed it. You loved me forever ago. Well, I should have known you'd have gone to bed early. And I should have known you would wake and disturb me. And I should have known, oh, but you should have heard me, remembering everything you did. So I said I'll murder any man who tells me that I'm too aggressive. And I said I'll murder any man who tells me that I am too small. And I said I'll murder any man with courage enough to go after you. And I said I'll murder any man who does anything at all. That you purposely planned it, your sudden escape with that back-breaking bandit. But I was the first one you saw when you landed, and you didn't tell me hello. Well, I'm not the type to exploit my expenses on dangerous, dubious, plain false pretenses. I took all my paychecks in 3 big advances and didn't save anything up. So I said, well, this is the day that I'm gonna go back to you. And I said, well, this is the day that I'm gonna go home. And I said, well, this is the day I'll return to my own true form. And I said, well, this is the day, but so is all of last month. You took all my shillings, and I am aware that my teeth need some fillings, and I am aware that you're ready and willing to throw all my goodness away.